Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you tonight?
Still here?
Ready for another go round?
Yeah, I'm getting tired, but
Oh, me
it,
too.
were these your handiwork?
The minutes? Yes, sir.
You have a great memory.
Oh, well, it's all here. It's all here.
How can you write that fast?
I just keep writing. Just write. See, just like now, I'm putting Lewis down on my list of people present.
I'm here. I
Yes,
got
you
cut
are.
off last week.
Oh, did you?
Well, I was, we had just, it looked like we were taking a vote to leave. And
Oh,
all of a sudden, everybody just stopped moving. And I'm sitting here saying, well, is everybody still here? And everybody was frozen in position. So I just
oh
said,
my
well,
gosh.
time to leave.
Well, I wonder if, sometimes whoever is the host can say meeting over for everybody. And they click one button and we're all done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Could have been it. I just looked and I said, gee, I must have lost Comcast. So I shut
Oh,
down and
could have
went
been.
down and watched TV.
Yeah, there you go. So you're a next generation guy, huh?
I go way back to the original Kirk. Yeah,
I'm a Trekkie.
not a girl.
I'm a Trekkie. You remember the Friday night dances at the town hall?
Well, probably not. Remember, I moved out after I joined the Coast Guard. I
Okay.
went off and got married and raised a family and just came back 5 years ago.
Wow. No, in junior high, we had Friday night dances at the town hall, and Star Trek was on Friday night at 10 o'clock, and you couldn't leave the dance early. So I would stand there at the door, and they'd say, okay, you can go. Zoom. I would run home so I could watch Star Trek. I loved it.
Yeah, same here.
Yep, I was one of those fans that when they said they were canceling, I wrote a letter and I got a signed photo of Spock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, still have it upstairs.
Yeah, local boy, Leonard from Boston, as a matter of fact, the old West End.
Yeah. So
I raised both of my kids. They were both Trekkies too. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
No, my husband was too.
I never understood why.
No,
No.
we love it. Love it.
And I never did Game of Thrones. I mean, I realize it's very different, but I never got into Game of Thrones either.
Oh, I didn't watch that.
I've never watched it.
No.
So
Violent.
Yeah, I guess I never watched it.
So
Well,
tell
not-
me, what's the attraction to Star Trek?
I
Oh,
don't know.
wow.
It was just the whole possibility of what we could achieve.
Sure. Do you know that they've actually science, some of the stuff that they talked about going way back to the 60s. My son would come back. He went to MIT and
Mhm.
Courant Institute in New York. And he says, do you know that there's a whole section of science that is about Star Trek science?
I
You
love
know,
it. I love it.
so they imagine things that could exist.
Yeah.
Now they're going about and creating them.
Yeah.
Wellesley and MIT have a partnership. We're brother-sister schools with, back and forth open registration. So I had MIT students in my classes and they were all Trekkies. And it was like, they could,
Yep.
all of them, really
Yep.
nice kids, great kids.
Yeah. I don't know. I love the adventure of it, kind of vicariously living through the show of the possibilities. Had I been born in a different era, I probably would have tried out for the space program.
Well, as in when we were living in Andover, my daughter's friend across the street, Julie, ended up going to Caltech, and she's working for NASA now.
Nice.
You know, not on the space shuttle or anything
Right,
like that,
right.
but whatever it is that she does.
Our
Nice.
daughter's partner got inspired. He's an astrophysicist at the Smithsonian in Cambridge. He got inspired because of the space shuttle. You
Okay.
know, that was why he did. There's a whole lot of people who are in astrophysics, that kind of science, who are all inspired by the moon landings, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I remember exactly where I was when they started.
Where were you?
I was in my living room, sitting right next to my dad. I was on the floor. He was in the chair. The room was dark and quiet. It was great. Of course, we were all crowded in there. I am the seventh of nine, so there were a lot of us there.
That's cool.
7 of 9.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like
comes from Voyager.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's Trekkie humor. Never mind.
Yep. Seventh of 9. That's me.
Oh,
I was
Hello,
in grade-
everyone. Live long and prosper.
Oh, you got it. You got it. You know it.
Oh,
When I was in college, I lived in our own little apartment on a farm off of campus, and people would come out to study with us. Our ritual every evening was we would watch Star Trek from like 5 to 6, reruns of Star Trek, and at 6 o'clock, everybody knew the house rules were we studied until 11 o'clock, and then we turned on Carson.
Okay.
And
There you go. You got motivated by Trek.
Yep.
Good.
And I think I was kind of like you, Julie. I remember it. I was like a little tyke and
Yeah.
like, oh, this is pretty neat. I'm not sure I
Where was
understood the
your
whole
farm?
import of it, but it was pretty neat.
where was your farm?
Newark, Delaware. University of Delaware.
Hey there.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, happy Tuesday.
Happy
So
Tuesday.
where were you when the moon landing happened, Julie?
Oh, I know where I was. I was actually homesick from school. I remember watching it from on a little black and white TV.
Yep, black and white.
Yeah. Well, of course, black and white is all they had, but I was homesick
Yeah.
from school.
Exactly. I was convinced the moon was black and white. It actually probably is.
It is
Gray.
funny, right? You know. Uh-oh.
What was the date of that? That moon landing?
Oh, I
A
should.
69.
Yeah.
Late 60s.
It was
That
definitely
was
69.
my first year teaching kindergarten in the Boston Public Schools. And so I didn't have a car yet. So I took the subway, the T, everything into Roxbury by buses, etc. And I was living with friends in an apartment in Cambridge. And I remember watching it.
Yeah.
But also we did some kind of project on it for the kids, right?
Sure.
I mean, it was a huge deal. So I don't know, I helped them make moons with whatever.
Right.
You taught in Boston?
Yeah, I taught in the Boston Public Schools,
Yeah,
kindergarten.
my wife did too.
Oh, where?
Yeah.
What part?
John F. Kennedy, Jamaica
Oh,
Plain.
yeah, I was at the Farragut and the Hennigan.
That's East
um,
Boston, isn't it?
No,
Oh.
Farragut is Brigham Circle, and the
Oh,
Hennigan
okay.
is on going down to Roxbury Crossing. The Hennigan is on right near the Bromley Heath project.
That's where the JFK was,
So
right near the Bromley Heath project.
that's where my
Yeah.
kids came from.
Yeah. Then you probably hit my wife was a 5th grade teacher in JFK.
She got them.
That's great. Hi,
Yeah,
John.
that's great. She told me all the stories. It's interesting teaching in the 5th grade in that school.
How long did she teach in Boston?
9 years in Boston. And then she came up and she finished up at Andover Public Schools. So,
I did 3.
yeah, she loved it. She was good at it.
Oh, the kids were
She's my MCAS guru.
the kids were so adorable. Oh my God, kindergartners. Oh,
Yeah, she went to a school that doesn't exist anymore. It was Boston State College.
I went there.
Oh, okay.
That's where I
So
got
it
my
did
teaching
exist.
certificate.
It
That's
did
where I got my
exist.
teaching certificate.
Oh,
Yes. Boston State.
What did
Okay.
what did Boston State become?
It's part of UMass Boston now, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Okay,
I'm pretty
It,
sure.
it got folded
Yeah, it's
in when
UMass
when
Boston.
it opened
okay.
in the Boston campus, yeah. But it used to be right next to, well, just down this, Wentworth Institute was
And
around
Longwood, it
it.
was on near the corner of Longwood and Huntington.
Yeah. Yeah, down by Mass College of Art.
Exactly.
Wentworth Institute was down there.
That's where I got my certification.
Sorry for derailing your start of the meeting, Bob. Go for it.
it's okay. So for anybody who cares, it was July 20th, 1969.
Thank you.
And I believe we have a quorum, so we will come to order. So present from the Finance Committee is Vanderslice, Tarmy, Beatty, Fulgham. I'm going to click through this. Hora, Calvin. That's Jeff Lewis.
Calvin, oh, my grandson had to do a Zoom session.
Mhm.
How do I change that?
I have no idea. Tony knows, but I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna be Calvin for a while then until one of the kids shows up and changes it.
All right, and Allison is joining us. Austin is joining us. That's all I say. Bill Brown, DeWitt Brown has joined us as well.
DeWitt, you're in the dark.
I'll light everything up one of these years. I just got rid of my background. I was on another meeting and they're still running. So
Oh,
So
I just saw an email from Dana that he's going to be 15 minutes late. So we have everybody who's going to be here is here.
Okay.
and was Sheila going to join us?
She was, but she pushed us till next week as well. So we have no CPC and we have no Sheila this
Oh.
week.
Okay,
Okay.
that means it might be early. Ho, ho, ho.
maybe. Let's see how quickly we can do what we need to do. So, okay, so Phil, you look really creepy. All we can see is the bottom of the glass as it raises and the reflection of your glasses.
Well, last week he was kind of spectral-like
Yeah.
with his background. He faded into his background.
Oy.
Anyway, all right, so regarding CPC briefly, in exchanging emails with Lynn about whether they would be ready and they are not ready, she reminded me that,
Ah, that's better.
there you go, now we can see you. You
Yay,
handsome
that's
devil, you. She reminded me that this time around, we will be approving essentially 2 years worth of CPC requests. Remember, because the last time, the September meeting, the CPC article was one of the ones that got postponed. So this round will be an especially big one
But
because
we already went through and voted on most of them, though.
There's some new
yes,
ones. I
Yes.
looked at the list.
Right. But the ones from last year, we voted on most of them.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
We left that big red one alone.
right,
Oh,
understood. And we're not touching the red one tonight
Right.
either.
Did she give an idea of how many? I mean, I just assumed that given the holdover from last year, that this year would be a fewer number of applications or articles, but maybe that's not true.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think, I believe they are kind of revisiting the entire list again because, they may choose to distribute the funds differently.
Okay.
Right. And
Yeah,
one of
that's,
them, yeah, oh, sorry. I learned that one of them has withdrawn the historic district one,
Okay.
withdrew. I learned that today.
yes.
Which
Yeah, so
one
my
was that?
understanding is they are revisiting all of them from last year. They're not just going to simply roll over. So I understood from Tony that some of them were cut in funding from what they're originally proposed. So I think they're going to revisit even the amounts that they're funding them at too.
Yeah. Now, Allison, I asked Lynn this and she didn't get back to me. Do they approve this like as one big block that's 2 years worth? Or do they approve it like as 2 one-year increments? Did that question make sense?
So yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. I don't know. This is my first time around with CPA. I don't have, in Marblehead, we didn't have it. So I'm not very familiar with it. This is my first time around. My understanding, I think it's going to be one big lump. She had asked me to put together this revenue template for her, and how I presented it, the revenues were the 2 years worth lumped together. So, but I'm honestly, I'm not entirely sure how it's going to show up.
I see in the chat window that Austin weighed in and he says that there's been 8 applications for FY22. So,
That's right. Austin's on the committee, I think.
yeah.
Right, and did you all get the documents that Lynn sent today?
I
Oh,
did not see those.
Oh, okay.
no.
She said today.
Today or yesterday, I can't, well,
Yeah, I got a bunch yesterday.
yeah, I wasn't able to open them until today, but
Oh, the one that had the list of the proposals? Is that the one?
yeah, it had Excel sheets and then the warrant.
Yes, I got that. Yep.
PPP, okay,
Yeah, I don't think I got that. So if
okay.
somebody would forward it to me, that'd be good. Maybe she sent it to a
Same here,
different email.
please.
Yeah.
Yep,
I didn't get that either.
Or actually maybe just dump the documents into the OneDrive and then tell us that you've done so.
okay.
Or just do it and then we'll go find them.
Or do it, send the link.
Oh,
Yeah.
would you send the link? I would love that.
Yeah.
The from Lynn? Yeah, okay.
It's funny that it was,
I
It's
didn't look
because
at the whole
Julie and I
list.
would-
Yeah,
Who volunteered to be sort of the liaisons.
perfect. All right, that explains it. Great,
that's
then thank
why-
you.
yeah, I always get copied on them too, I don't know why.
And I volunteered to kind of be the backup, so that's why I got it.
Dana, right,
Right.
okay.
Okay. So anyway, what I think we ought to do tonight is let's work our way through the list of articles and just vote them if we can vote them.
Okay.
Okay?
All
Do
right,
you want to
so-
approve minutes at the end or do you want to do that first?
Let's do that first.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
We have 2 sets.
Right.
So we have February 23rd. And then, so we have to do them separately. So,
Okay, so moved for the February 23rd.
okay,
Second.
okay,
I have only one little minor tweak on that version, on those minutes, the 23rd.
okay.
On the second page, you have a line of conversation where you say, Sheehan said, move water to MWRA. And I think he meant, it means move sewer to MWRA, right? It makes sense that.
Oh, yeah, because MWRA is this, well, oh, okay,
Right? Because we already get our water from MWRA.
right.
We pay Lynn water and sewer for our sewer. And I think he was saying, can we also give our sewer to MWRA? Is my recollection. Does that make sense to anybody else?
Right,
That's what he was referring to.
Okay, so that's very
So-
minor, but just,
change that to sewer, got it.
yep, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. So as amended?
Yep.
Okay,
So moved and seconded, all in favor?
Beatty, I.
Hold your mind.
Who was I?
Brown eye.
Tarmy, aye.
Zohar, aye.
Says aye. And it is unanimous.
All right, and so now on to March 2nd.
I move for those to be accepted,
Thank you,
March 2nd.
thank you,
Thank
Second,
you.
thank you.
Beatty, I.
Hold your
Brown
mind.
eye.
Who was I?
All right, this sounds unanimous.
Tarmy, yep.
Hora.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You've been joined by,
Is that Madeline or Timmy?
This is Madeline McCordy, yes.
That's
She's a
Madeline,
non-voting member.
right? And she's not Madeline, she's
Madeline,
Madeline.
M-A-D-L-E-N. Right,
Right.
all right, you, down. Okay, so let's just march our way through the articles. John, do you have?
I do. I have. So one of the things I did today is I put a bunch of documents into various folders. One of them was the updated warrant that we received from Tony, where I went in and put everybody's name embedded in the article. So if you look in the folder that says, I think, town warrant, one of the documents will be a document dated today. That's just the Word document with everybody's name next to the 41 articles. So that's one thing I put in there. I also put in 2 documents related to the Nahant tree bylaw that I went in and found. So I'm not sure what we'll get to tonight, but just for your reference, the folder that's related to the tree bylaw has the tree bylaw in its entirety, and then it has the components of the tree bylaw that are Nahant specific. So those are the 2 PDFs. Then I also went in to the library folder and put in, Jeff had done some, once again, very nice work taking the data that Sharon had passed on to us with respect to kind of communities, FTE, population kind of metrics. And so he went in and worked with that. And that spreadsheet, which I think he forwarded to everybody, if not, it's dumped into the library folder. So when we go to kind of discuss and talk about the overall budget and any tweaks or changes we want to make in the context of the conversation we had with Sharon, that's another document to reference. I also put in, I think, the 3 documents that Allison and Jeff worked on related to kind of debt and understanding revenue, those kind of things. So those updated documents are also in a folder. So I think those are all the things that I put into their respective places. So that was a long-winded way to say to Bob, yes, I do have today's warrant, which I can, you want me to put it up?
That would be helpful to me.
Okay. Let me go find it. Sorry, 1 second. It's telling me I don't have the privileges to open it. 1 second. Okay, it opened. Let me just. Okay. Sorry. I lost my Zoom window. Okay, sorry. Okay, what do you see?
The warrant.
You see it? Okay, so that's good. So I think Bob's point about us kind of trying to plow through and knock off the ones that we can knock off as quickly as possible makes sense. So the first 3 articles, the transfers, the snow and ice, and the prior year bills are all articles where we typically vote to make no recommendation. And you know, the wording is for the first one that the transfer requests have not been finalized. We'll make our motion on the floor once we know what they are at the meeting. So that's pretty straightforward. Kind of the same for the snow and ice. There's a placeholder for, I think, 30,000 there. But again, we won't know the final number until the meeting. That's something that the state allows. And it's kind of the same for the Article 3. So I think in my mind, we could, if anybody wants to make a motion starting with number 1 to make no recommendation, and we can do the same thing for the next 2, we'll have 3 knocked out of the way. But if anybody thinks otherwise, I'm happy to hear.
No, I think that's great. So moved for Article 1.
Seconded.
So the motion is to make no recommendation for Article 1. Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown
Lewis,
eye.
aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Carmy, I.
Zohora, aye.
Okay, first one down, 40 to go.
Okay, so that one took us 5 minutes, so just multiply.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move to make no recommendation on Article 2.
Second.
Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Lewis, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Zohora, aye.
And Sheehan,
Ah,
the vote is to abstain. No comment.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I vote yes.
All right. So that's 2. So Dana, I don't know
I'm
what,
sorry, were you agreeing you were voting aye with the rest? Dana?
Yes, sorry about that confusion.
That's okay.
Yes, I vote yes to say nothing about it.
Okay, thank you.
Dana, did you hear my introduction where we talked about we're on Article 3, which is the prior year bills where we typically make no recommendation?
No, I apologize, John. I just got on. I was
Okay,
gonna-
yeah, I knew you, I thought maybe that was the case. I just wanted to make sure. And I wanted to make sure more specifically because I see your name next to it, so I didn't want to push something in a direction where you were like, what the heck's going on? So basically, we agreed that Article 3 is an article that, we don't really have insight into until we get to town meeting, so we typically make no recommendation. And we'll state that in the book.
Okay, I'm good at making no recommendation there, so.
Okay.
So are you moving that?
Yes, I do move that. make no
Okay.
recommendation, So,
Second.
Fulgham, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Lewis, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Zohora, aye.
Carmy, aye. Okay.
All right. Now, I just a question. I'm kind of comparing and contrasting with a prior year's book.
All right.
And there's always been an Article 1 elections to choose a moderator for a term of 1 year, blah, 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 blah. That's not here.
So
No.
if I remember correctly, we did something, or the state allowed us to kind of do away with that. Like we don't have to make that formal declaration anymore. It just happens.
And the elections happen before this warrant,
Elections
correct?
happen before.
The election day is in April. The town meeting is in May.
That could be why. All right.
So I guess Tony can remind us, but yeah, I noticed that wasn't in there as well, but it seemed like there was a good reason that it wasn't there.
Okay. All right, then Article 4, salary and classification plan. This one is routine. Allison, well, we could skip a step. Can you, let's do it in sequence. Can you forward to me what you had prepared? Or did
do
you?
that. Yeah, and so basically, there's the 3 union contracts. We'll be going into the 3rd year of those. But yes, I've put together this document for you.
Okay, so I don't think it's right to ask the committee to approve it without seeing the,
Mhm.
the schedule in this case.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So we'll
Yep.
move it, we'll save that for when we have the numbers in front of us.
Yeah. Article 5, elected officials, is kind of the same as 4, except it's much, much simpler.
Right, I guess all we need to know there is the town clerk salary, right?
I was gonna
That's kind of
say,
the one.
what, the town clerk is always the controversial one.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna just be whatever the unions, well, actually, it's even though she's not a union employee, she typically gets the union adjustment. Is that right? You remember, Allison?
So hers will be a 2% increase.
2%? Okay.
Yep.
So do we want to approve it based on a 2% increase, or do we want to talk about that, or do we actually need to see the number in front of us? I could go either way.
I don't need to see the figure. It's 2% over what.
It doesn't, also doesn't make a difference to me.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 2%.
Yeah, I would be in favor of the 2% as well.
I have the numbers right in front of me, and it's not just the town clerk's position that you're voting on.
Right.
This article also covers, hold on, let me just minimize.
Yeah, it's the selectmen at
The selectman and the assessor, yeah, $1.
Yeah.
Right.
And the constable, $50. So those don't change. And again, it's just the town clerk is the 2% increase. So her salary would be $61,851.
Anyone want to make a motion to recommend?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Fulgham, aye.
ADI.
Brown eye.
Louis, I.
Anders Slice, aye.
Zohar, aye.
Charmy, aye. Was that everyone?
I think so.
I think so.
Thank you.
Ian, I.
Oh.
There we go. Thank you. That's me.
So the next one, we can't do the omnibus, but I guess the way we should think about that is if anybody has outstanding issues or questions related to budgets that we haven't asked Tony, that you feel like we need more information on, kind of think of the questions you need answers, so that once we're sure their numbers are final, then we can vote it, or we have the information we need to vote it.
I say there was, there might be some tweaking on that citizens petition.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's final at this stage of the game.
yeah, I think you're right. So we're obviously not going to vote the omnibus. That's typically one of the things we vote very last, but.
Yeah, in addition, after we had, I think it was last week's meeting when we were speaking of the sailing budget, we went back and revisited that, and the selectmen are going to consider an additional increase because the original budget did not include the cost of living increases, like the director was saying. So the selectmen will approve that. So you will see one other adjustment.
Okay. Then Article 7 is again something we typically like to see the full kind of breakdown of the salary line item, the expense line item, the capital outlay, the debt, and then the reserve. So I don't think we're ready to vote that. That's another one we push. And
Yep.
if anybody thinks otherwise, yell. Article 8 is relatively straightforward, I think. That again is just the money that we pull from retained earnings to address paving when the road's dug up, when that work is completed. So
I think 8 is one of 3 articles that involves that paving.
yeah, right.
One's Title 90, this, and there's a third one that escapes me right now.
Yeah. But this one's is, as I remember and understand, it's specific to the paving expense that comes from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund.
That's correct.
So. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve since it's mine.
I'll second.
Second,
I guess the motion is technically to recommend. I said approve, but make a motion to
Right.
recommend.
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Louis, I.
Oldham, aye.
Anderslice, aye.
Charmy, I.
Zohara, I.
Aye.
All right, she and I.
I keep clicking on John's screen trying to move it. It doesn't.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. It's
I'm,
me,
I'm
not
looking
you.
at I'm looking at papers on my desk as well. So, Article 9 again. That typically is much like the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, where we have the table of salaries, expenses, capital outlay. So I think we need to have that table before we vote this one. So I think that's another one we push.
Yep.
Okay, then Article 10, the compost. I think we've discussed that one. I don't know if anybody has further concerns or questions with that. I think Tony and Zach explained it to my satisfaction, but I'm happy to.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend that.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Well, actually, may I get in there on that before we vote?
Yeah.
Zach, in our last conversation about the compost area, talked about his people checking to see who's a resident, who's not. And I guess what I'm thinking about is maybe we should try to recommend that it's a requirement. If you're going to use the compost area, you have to have the town sticker on your car. I mean, it's not going to raise a whole lot of money, I think. It's not going to certainly cover the $50,000 to maintain that area, but it'll at least, create some user fees so that we defray some of that cost. Does anybody have any thoughts about that, or is this the time to talk about it? Or
No, I think it's a good idea, and I think it totally makes sense to me. I'm just wondering if,
Well, the 50,000, doesn't it come out of the rubbish revenue?
yeah, but I think Dana's just making a point of
Right,
we paid our money for our beach sticker to signify that we're able to park in the town
Right.
public lots.
Right.
And you could kind of think of that sticker also as permission to use the compost area.
yeah,
And I think,
Sort of becoming your Nahant passport.
yeah, and I think that makes sense. I'm just wondering if that's something, because I think the selectmen every year vote on the fee structure for the town, right? I don't know where and when they do that, but at some point in time, they vote, these are the fees that we're going to charge the citizens for a whole spectrum of different things, whether it's a mooring permit or a store your lobsters pots permit or whatever it is. And I'm just wondering if by us, I mean, I think we can put it in the language, but I don't know that our language will necessitate an explicit requirement that people have it. You know what I'm saying, Dana?
Right.
Maybe
Yeah,
we can
yes.
maybe we can have the conversation with Tony and the selectmen that we would, that's our position, that should be the case.
Right, and the selectmen have mentioned that the fees from those stickers, those town stickers, goes just directly into the recreation fund.
Yep.
And maybe that's not where they should go, so that this $50,000 can somehow be reduced by those, I don't know, some portion of the stickers.
Yeah, if Tony was here, I think one of the things he would say is, I can't remember, some previous rendition of the finance committee had agreed to kind of have a subcommittee look at basically the revenue side of town fees and figure out if they were appropriate and if they should be changed, if they should,
Right.
fees should be added, and we have never done that. So,
No, we started it and then COVID came in and
yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, I get your point. I mean, I like the simplicity of things, you know, things, fees pay for what you're paying the fee for, you know, I like,
Yeah, and I'm just not sure it's worth the administrative overhead of doing it.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just would be some kind of entry, I think, Bob. I mean, in the way that those funds are allocated, because
No, yeah, I know, but it's gonna fall on Allison to figure it out and make the entry and.
Yeah. So
mean,
maybe as kind of a compromise, what we could, if we were to kind of recommend the article as it's written, we could kind of, in the recommendation,
Yes.
add language where we talk about the idea or the concept of using the town quote unquote beach sticker as kind of the compost access passport, and also a more general kind of discussion, you know, in a few sentences or in a paragraph about, you know, general fee structures covering things in an appropriate way. Would that satisfy you, Dana?
I think so, but just the one question I would have is that gonna make anything happen, or is there any action would come out of that, or is it just a recommendation and, start the process of thinking about it?
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be content to, I mean, if we could have a actual tangible outcome going into this town meeting, if we can talk to Tony and the selectmen to enable that, I would prefer that. I was just kind of hedging with, you know,
Right.
it's a recommendation statement.
We can put it in the recommendation.
Right. In
And
the
just
recommend-
as an aside, I'm familiar with another town that has a similar place. And they require you to show proof that you own property in the town, which could be like a copy of a tax bill or something like that. So that, I mean, that might be something else other than the parking sticker.
Yeah, I mean, I have a place up in Maine, and in Maine, they, you know, they required you to buy a $5 lifetime trash sticker. You know, the trash fees are covered in the property taxes, but they still make you have this sticker.
Lifetime for $5.
Yeah,
In the recommendation that I wrote last year, I did put in the verbiage. It is further recommended that the town re-examine the use of this lowland area as a fee-for-service composting site.
I think that's where we're going, Julie, and
Right.
yeah.
And I mean, that could be anything. That could be, buying a one-time sticker. It could be part of the beach sticker all encompassing, but that kind of says, we need to think of a fee on this service.
Yeah. I get Dana's point about, talk is cheap, so to speak. I mean, we talk about it for a while, and
Well, John, I volunteered my time to Tony after the town meeting to work with him on fees.
okay.
And I'll definitely commit the time to do it. But, to do something before, I mean, the stickers supposedly due on the 18th.
Right.
So if we were gonna, raise the cost of it, I don't know how much wiggle room you've got to even do that at this stage.
Right.
Yeah, Jeff, I don't think we're really talking about raising the fee, but just requiring it to use the compost area.
Another way you could do it would be amend the motion on the floor.
I mean, I know in the past that there was a significant problem with the compost area being used by contractors from who were maybe doing work in Nahant, who had a 1/20th of their load was from the grass they cut in Nahant, and 19/20ths were from somewhere else, and they were essentially dumping it for free or minimal cost And I think they've kind of, they've put a stop to that. So that problem is, at least as far as commercial users, taking advantage of the system. I don't think that happens anymore.
Right.
Are there other people in town, outside of town, who take advantage? Maybe not, but I guess your point about people paying for it that don't ever use it is another.
And another thing that Zach talked about was trying to make the composting something that is usable and possibly saleable.
Yeah.
Well, first we need to, if we're going to do what we're talking about in terms of stickers or whatever, there's the enforcement question.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Most of the time, there's somebody there to
There is,
monitor the use of the compost area.
Yeah.
And they don't have a way to identify,
Right.
who's a resident or not.
They
The
should-
sticker is one idea, and it might drive a little more people buying the parking sticker, which is a nominal charge. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, I don't think, but it could help.
Right.
so what would people be told? Would they be told that they can't, say they come without a sticker? So would they, because there's someone there, would they be told that they have to go get a sticker and come back, or what? That's in the details of enforcement.
Right. I mean, the implementation, Barbara, you're right. The implementation is something to think about. But
Does-
it's probably not going to happen this year, but in some ways, to get it in motion is.
Well, no, I agree with you. I'm just asking us to think about what those steps would be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dana's sentiment. I'm just thinking of my personal case. I do not have a parking sticker.
It's $10 a year.
I know, it's not gonna, it's not gonna drive me out of town to buy one.
Bob, can I buy you one?
So where are we? We have a motion.
Is there a way to change the language here?
We can't change the language in the article.
Who owns it?
We can send it off to the Board of Selectmen saying we'd like a change, but only they can.
But we could vote the article as is, and then with the understanding that whoever is writing this,
That's me.
Julie,
Yep.
would include a statement to the effect of whatever it is, when, whether we're recommending the beach sticker thing or something else.
Right, with a kind of maybe a date certain, maybe in 2022, the compost area will require the parking sticker for the town, something like that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that language.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Long conversation.
No, it's,
That's why we're here, exactly.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. So keep it coming.
Yep.
And if you feel strongly that we should do something other than keep with the consistent or the current language, don't feel like we're bulldozing you.
I'll take it offline with Julie since she owns it and see what you want to do. I mean, I would like to change it, but
Yeah.
I don't want to. This is not mine.
Yeah.
It's ours.
Shoot me an email.
Okay.
So
Further discussion? And then I guess there's a motion, so we can take.
Brown eye.
Beatty, I.
Fulgham, aye.
She and I.
Ender Slice, aye.
Tarmy,
Lewis,
I.
aye.
Sahara, I.
Thank you.
So then Article 11 is kind of, again, pretty standard boilerplate, just allows us to access the Chapter 90 paving funding that the state sends our way.
I would move that one. It's my.
Second.
right. I guess all in favor?
Katie, I.
Brown eye.
Louis, I.
Fulgham, aye.
Anderslice, aye.
She and I.
Army,
Sahara, I.
all eyes.
Article 12 is pretty straightforward. It just allows the authorization of the revolving funds for those recreation committees. And it's just kind of standard accounting practice. I don't really understand why. Maybe Allison can weigh in here. Why do we have to do this every year? Do you know why?
So it's actually interesting because this came up between Tony and I. It's because you're voting it under this certain section of chapter 4453D that part of the legislation requires you to authorize it every year. There's another section for revolving funds. That's chapter 44, section 53E and a half, where I think you did it for the, I think it's the cemetery revolving fund. And there's another one where 2 years ago when the Municipal Modernization Act passed, it allowed towns to, through town meeting, make those revolving funds a part of the bylaw. And then every year, all that town meeting votes on is the spending cap. So technically, my experience is I've seen a recreation revolving fund under that other section 53 and a half, where it's adopted by bylaw and then you only have to authorize the spending limit each year, but it's because you have it under, you're authorizing it under this separate section. You have to authorize the whole fund every year.
Okay.
And to change it to the other one would require a bylaw change?
Correct.
Good explanation. Thank you.
I vote to recommend, or move to recommend.
I'll second.
Brown eye.
Katie, I.
Louis, I.
Fulgham, aye.
She and I.
Army, aye.
Anderslice, aye.
Mhm.
Sahara, I.
All eyes.
Boy.
Okay, then Article 13, this is a new one. So this is, we've never seen this before, but I think Tony has talked to us about a few times or a bit. So to me, it just, again, it's establishing funds
Oh, yeah.
for the Board of Appeals and for the Conservation Commission to basically hold their revenues or allocated funds to pay for the things that are listed in this table. And again, I think the reason that they want to set up these funds is because there's an increased expense in both of those buckets that isn't easily or clearly addressed with the current kind of finance and accounting system. So it seems to me in a way to make these funds operate,
So if, what,
Go ahead.
why did we not include the recreation fund in this list, the previous article that we just voted?
Right.
Good question.
Because this is the 53E and a half.
Ah, you're
Right,
right.
that's exactly, that's my point. Shouldn't,
That's it.
But we would have,
That's something that I can approach with Tony. I think he just would need to check with legal counsel, to be honest.
okay, I see what you're saying, Bob. You're saying throw those other
Yeah, but
funds into this table too, and then we won't have to do Article 12 every year.
Right.
right,
Can't be done. It's different sections.
yeah, but that's the point, Bill. So
Right.
this is a bylaw change, and if we included them, then 12 would essentially go away because
Right.
it would be subsumed into 13.
Okay. So are we willing to vote Article 13 as it is with the qualifier that we'll have the conversation to see if we can enable any of the Article 12 committees or commissions to be dealt with in this article potentially? Like, do we have any problems with Article 13 as it stands, other than
No,
a desire for additional committees to be added?
no, it's fine.
Looks fine.
Does
Oh,
someone
does
want-
does that mean we'll need to add new language to 13? Or,
I think if yeah, I mean, it would have to be a new selectman
But that would be next year.
wording of the article to accommodate the changes that we're speculating.
but that would happen for next year, not this year.
No, it would happen. It would have to happen before town meeting, potentially.
Right.
Yeah. Or, I
And
mean,
there-
that would be another option, Barbara, that in next year's cycle, we do with the committees in 12, what we're doing in 13 for these committees this year. I think the point is obviously that these are two new funds, so we're plugging them into the more, I guess, less cumbersome statute, the 4453 and a half. But yeah,
But just to be clear, the one that the recreation falls under, that section of the legislation is only for recreation. So all other revolving funds fall under 53 and a half.
But is there something that would prevent you from putting recreation under 53E and a half? I'd love to know what a half an E is.
So I don't know where the municipality that I came from before, our recreation revolving fund was under 53 E and a half. So I've actually never seen it under 53D. I think honestly, it would just be a legal counsel question, but I think that it could be done.
okay.
So what needs to happen? Do we need to ask the legal counsel? How, we ask Tony, how do we do that? Or do we
I
want to,
can work with Tony. So
okay,
after this meeting tomorrow, when I see him, I'll say that this came up at tonight's meeting and to ask him to look into it.
okay, and we'll find out more later. Okay, thanks.
Sure.
But for just expedience, do we want to go ahead and recommend Article 13 as it is? And then if we have to change our recommendation, if committees get added, we can do that later.
Sure, let's do that.
I will move to make that recommendation.
I'll second.
Second,
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Fulgham, aye.
Anderson, I say.
Sheehan, aye.
Yeah, Lewis, I.
Carmy,
Zohara, aye.
All right. I think Article 14 is also, it's relatively straightforward. The only qualifier that I would have is, I still feel like the $25,000 dollar amount is on the lowest end of what's kind of acceptable. I think when we created this count, I think it was 3 years ago, or maybe it was, it's been around longer than that. But I know that as part of the override vote, we had language in our letter that said we wanted the OPEB contribution to be more significant than the $25,000 that was allotted to it. And it's always stayed at 25. So we always find an excuse to kind of not bump it up. So that would be my one thing I'd say. So
So do you want me to add that to the recommendation that going forward, we anticipate that we would not anticipate, but we would expect that this amount would increase.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we went back in and found the kind of forensic accounting statement or whatever, when the auditors kind of review everything and write their book, they state what our OPEB liability is. So I think we should go and find that number and make sure that it's in the recommendation statement, just to kind of juxtapose the $28,000 balance that we have that's going to be bumped up to over 50, it's, you know, it's 50,000 against a $1.5 million liability.
It's going to be a big, scary number.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
I agree with you, by the way. I just,
yeah. Okay, just so I mean, I think we should recommend it, and I don't think we're necessarily in a place to change this number now, but just I think in our statement we need to capture what the liability is and what how our current balance is really kind of working in the right direction. Yes, but you know, if we had another couple $100,000 to throw in there, we should probably do it.
Allison? You still online?
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, yeah, you sent me a link the other day.
Mhm.
It had some interesting statistics on it. Could I ask that the other members of the committee get that link?
Yeah, sure. I can send
Because
it to
I
everyone.
think
Yep.
that OPEB thing was on the data that they track for the state. That had
Yeah,
the
and
number
I
that,
also have the OPEB figure too. I just don't have it right
Yeah.
at my fingertips
good.
right now. So I can send you an email tomorrow when I find it, along with the link to that, the DLS site with the data
yeah,
on
that
it.
was some great data. Just
Alice, yeah.
amazing amounts of data.
Yeah, so it's new. They had data always on their website, but that whole data bank is new. And I actually was in a presentation today where they were presenting the whole new dashboard. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
more user friendly than it was before.
all my data starved went away after I saw the stuff
I
that was
know, you
on
can
that
spend
site.
hours on there.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I don't actually have hours to do that. So, Allison, if you could provide me those numbers, that would be really helpful.
I will do
Thank you
both.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, so does anybody want to make a recommendation to approve Article 14, given the stipulations that we'll add that type of language?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Fulgham, aye.
Brown eye.
ADI.
Louis, I.
Ian, I.
Carmy, aye.
Zahora, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
All ayes.
I guess the stabilization is kind of in that same bucket. It's something that the Finance Committee has been pushing for quite a while, and just in recent years has it really kind of taken a jump up. So the 125 that we're putting there now, you know, that's a good thing. So again, one of the things that I was thinking we could and maybe should think about adding to our statement is some language that kind of gets at the point of what could and would these funds potentially be used for in the future. And I think we've had some conversation with Tony about that. You know, you don't want to, we understand the mechanism of how it gets distributed, but I guess the point is it's a rainy day fund and you really don't know what you're going to use it for, but it is you know, an extreme and unforeseen situation.
John, I'd say that that's a great idea. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, I kind of have some questions about it.
Yeah.
What is our goal? How much do we want to have in there?
Well,
And, what's the average per capita, stabilization fund? What are we trying to go?
I don't have the number in front of me, Dana, but I want to say that for a town of our, it should, maybe Allison can, I was going to say roughly 10% of your budget. I mean, like a very well-funded stabilization fund would be, so we should have, between $1 and $2 million in there.
yeah, Tony threw out the number of 2.5 million in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be, the recommendation is 10%.
Okay.
That's the GFOA standard.
So
When you say 10%, is that an annual contribution of 10% of revenue or the balance? Because I look at this more as an annual contribution rather than the balance in the fund, because the balance in the fund is going to go up and down depending.
You're correct. It's the balance should be 10% of your operating budget.
The balance in the fund should be 10% of your operating budget.
And what's the balance now?
100 and actually before the FY21, it was 193. So we put it 125. So we're roughly at probably 310 now.
So
then-
that's really low.
Yeah, and then if we put another 125, we'll be at 450. So we're getting there. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we used to sit here and put in like $10,000. So we're up orders of magnitude in terms of how we're funding it.
Good.
But, I mean, it's kind of like the OPEB thing. Like the number's small and your target is big, but at least in this case, we're moving there a little faster.
So, it's interesting, John, but
Yeah.
we've just come through so-called a black swan event,
Yeah.
the pandemic. And we didn't take anything out of it. And we're adding to it. So it's kind of like, it's good to have it there for financial stability.
Right.
But I would like to know, when would we take it out if it wasn't last year?
Well, Dana, thank you. That was going to be one of the things I suggested. Our recommendation should include something about we need to establish some clear guidelines about how much goes in and how much comes out and for what reasons it comes out.
Yeah, Bob, I completely agree. I mean, it's kind of, I look at it as kind of dead money sitting there. And, it's important to have for municipal financing, I guess. But I can't imagine $1.5 million sitting there, like,
No, for bond rating.
more.
Well, Dana, it's interesting because if we went back and looked at the reserve fund in the water and sewer enterprise funds previous to the last 3 or 4 years, we had a huge chunk of money sitting in reserves, and we had kind of the opposite problem that you're talking about now, actually the kind of problem you're talking about now, where people were looking at that number going, why the heck do you have $1.5 million in water and sewer reserves? Why aren't our rates lower? Why are you raising the rates when you got a $1.5 million, and then all of a sudden we had, $3 million expense, $4 million borrowing, $5 million borrowing. So all of a sudden that just vanished, so.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I get your point about, you don't want to just have this huge chunk of money sitting somewhere that's foolishly sitting there, but that was a case where we started to spend down and not borrow, and then all of a sudden, the reserves shrank to, a minimal amount. So
And, that kind of brings us back to where we started from, like, just kind of define it
right.
and set a goal of where we want to be in 3 to 5 years,
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. If I don't remember, if we want to, Jeff has done an amazing job of, mining data, and I'm sure he can wrap his head around this a little bit. And
I look at it like retained earnings, John.
yeah,
And if I was a bank, and Tony has made statements to this, that when they set our rates for our bonds, and our ability to borrow for large projects like the sewer and water, the first question they ask is, what do you have in the stabilization fund?
right.
It's companies that have, that don't have a lot of retained earnings, it's very difficult and very expensive to borrow. Same thing in the public sector. Having a good, strong balance, hey, great, you can get low rates. We'll lend you the money to do your water and sewer. So
Yeah.
Makes sense, Jeff.
having 300,000 scares the hell out of me. If I had 2.5 million, I'd say, great. This nice, comfortable position to be in.
Yeah, it's bond rating, that 150, 125 and our contributions relates to bond rating. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, but
Yes.
the general point about, I think, necessity of us adding language and starting to kind of shape the conversation about what could this money be used for in the future, and again, how much is appropriate. We have kind of that ballpark 10% figure that Allison has mentioned, so we know what the target is, and then we can between now and when the book goes to print, I guess collectively going to figure out, or whoever has a desire to help shape that message. I think we're pretty unified in the idea that communicating more clearly about what this money can and potentially will be used for makes sense.
May just want to speak to Tony as well, because I know that the town did work, and I believe you mentioned they worked with the Collins Center on financial policies, and there's draft financial policies out there. I actually haven't seen them yet, and this I would think would be included in that. So
Okay.
there might be something, some wording already in the works.
Okay.
That would be good. Nice little cut and paste job. So we can,
Yeah.
have a definition for the stabilization fund.
Okay. And it's Jeff is going to write this, so I can't think of anybody better to.
So if I can get a copy of that Collins report, you called it? Does that exist, or is that for publication yet?
No, so my understanding was it was a project that the town worked on. I believe it was Tony. But because of then COVID hit, and it was never really, re-looked at or developed further. So I really think it's just in draft format that needs to be we need to look at again.
I remember reading past FinCom reports, and they were requesting written financial policies.
Yeah, it's
So-
also come up with the auditors too, so.
So that at least confirms the fact that it was in existence, or somebody was taking some steps toward it, even
Yeah.
if it's in rough draft.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Jeff. We kind of pushed that for a while, and again, Tony's done a good job of getting us on the track and starting to run, but we haven't finished the race, but we'll get there.
Well, I think I'm responsible for doing the research behind this, and I'll get started on that. But the fact that it's up to 125 doesn't scare me. It makes me feel, that's great. You really want to make me happy, and I'll start dancing, move it up to 250. But I don't think Tony would do that.
I don't know. I'd like to move a contribution of $250,000 to the stabilization fund just to see him dance.
All right, so do we have a further discussion or a motion to recommend the Article 15?
Does this mean,
So
Jeff,
moved.
there'll be does this mean there'll be some new wording possibly that we'll be looking at and voting on again?
Well, yeah, I'd like to get the latest data, the latest statements of, let's use the term best practices. They exist out there, of what they would like to see in the stabilization fund. And so I'll probably incorporate that into the justification underneath it.
Yeah, so Barbara, the article itself isn't going to change, but just the statement that we make that a company
Yeah, right.
will change. Yeah, so we can vote the current wording and then editorialize in our
Right.
recommendation.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Okay,
Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
So
Both
I.
sides.
Tony, aye.
Oops, Vanderslice, aye. Sorry, Julie.
That's okay.
She and I.
Full Jomai.
All eyes.
All right.
And that's the third article, paving.
Yeah. So again, this is something, this is that, I don't know, is it a 0%? This is the, I think the kind of 10-year 0% interest borrowing that we kind of do every year. So it's kind of like a treadmill, but it's something we do every year.
May I make a motion to approve of this? Recommend it, rather?
Well, can I make
Second.
a tiny change? This is not to the article. There are 2 T's in my name.
Oh, did I do that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
Spelling is not my strong suit. I'm going to save that. Did I do that elsewhere or just there?
No, just there, I think.
Okay, see the next one, the one down there I got right. Right.
Brown eye.
Beatty, aye.
Louis, I.
Fulgham, aye.
Gian, I.
Army, I.
Laura, I.
Look, Vanderslay's aye.
All eyes.
So then we're on Article 17, the Munis software.
Oh, my.
I think
Okay.
we have all kind of, I think we talked about this last year and we've kind of heard a recap this year a little bit, and Allison has weighed in with her confirmation that our old system is archaic and almost unusable. So I guess we kind of have to
Make a motion to
spend
recommend.
money.
I noticed the dollars went up from last year. Allison, you there?
Sorry, I just got kicked off and my son's being a little fussy, so sorry, I missed that.
Last year's article had 300,000 for Munis. This year I noticed it's at 350. Was there
Yeah.
additional module added to that, or?
No, we actually received a quote last year, and so this is just a buffer in case that quote increases, which we think it likely will by at least inflation. So
Now,
it's just
is this the Tyler ERP system?
correct. Yep.
It is. So it's got the budget integrated with all of the other purchasing, accounts payable, accounts receivable, asset management, you know,
Yes.
yeah.
All in one.
Yeah, I downloaded their white paper.
Yeah, and like I think I spoke about it before. A lot of municipalities use this. It's like the Cadillac of municipal accounting software.
Yeah,
So
does this
I very much
conform-
look forward to having it.
Does it conform to the UMass thing that the state?
Yeah, so it's going to be a big project for me because what I'll have to do is convert all of our accounting data over into the new system. And so it'll be my responsibility to make sure that it aligns with UMass.
So at this stage, we don't know whether the chart of accounts is UMass or it
It
is.
is because they're familiar with working with Massachusetts municipalities.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Allison, this is Dana. I have a question too, about
Okay.
implementation of this software. Does the 350,000 include the whole transition process, from the old system to the new system?
Yes, my understanding is yes. So the quote that we got does include that. It includes training and the such.
Does it
And the data
include,
and everything. You're not gonna get stuck with doing that, are you? Moving the
Yes,
data.
it's going to be a big project for me. Yes.
does it include tech support?
Yes. Yeah, so after the implementation, we'll have to pay an annual maintenance cost, but that'll likely just be folded into my budget, my annual budget. I'm actually not sure what the annual maintenance cost is, but I would say a couple $100,000. A couple thousand.
If you need extra help doing the project, I volunteer.
See, Jeff's available for everything.
Love that stuff.
I will be happy to help since I kind of do this shit for a living.
And there'll be tech support for you when you first get started with it too, right? In addition to training?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Okay.
Usually what they do is say, your first month end close. We'll make sure we're like all over it.
Yep. Yeah, so I haven't been through a software upgrade in a municipality before. I have in previous employment, and I worked in higher education and we use PeopleSoft. So I've been through a similar process. It's going to be quite the project.
Yes, I went through it twice at Wellesley and oh my goodness. Yeah. Many meetings.
Yep.
and Training sessions and
Mm.
little modules. And
But
yes,
it'll be worth it. I can
Yes.
guarantee that.
So I'm happy to second that motion.
Beatty, I.
Lewis, definite
Brown
aye.
eye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Tommy, I.
Zahora, I.
She and I, having heard the excitement, she and I.
There you go. And before we leave this one, I don't know, did Judy get her vote in there?
Yep, Zahora, I.
Do you have a target go live date for this?
No, that would actually depend on once we start working on it. I'm assuming the project will take 6 months to a year.
Okay.
Are you then, will we need to be trained in this as well? I mean, how many users will need to be trained?
So that's a good question. So right now, the accounting software that we use is only accessible by the accounting department. So it's me and my accounting assistant. Munis allows department heads, actually anybody, any employee who wants to log in can log in with a unique name and password, and departments would only have access to their own department's data. So I think, that'd be a good thing. Departments can run spending reports on a more regular basis than relying on my office to send it to them. And that's the goal, to have departments to be able to do that.
I mean, that's what I would anticipate. I anticipate you put the, every head of the budget online so that because that's otherwise there's no value to having the software.
Correct. Yeah, my experience, where I was before, departments had access to their department's data. So I apologize. My son's in my lap. So if you hear a little,
Okay.
it's his 1-year-old birthday today.
Ah, happy birthday.
So that's why there's balloons in the background.
I saw the balloons.
What's his name?
Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
Happy birthday, Gabriel.
All right, so no, wait, Finance Committee, can we sing happy birthday over Zoom?
Depends on whether or not we can actually sing. That's the difference.
Thank you.
You want to try it?
Go for it.
All right, so happy birthday to
to
you.
Happy
birthday
to
to
you. Happy
birthday,
dear Gabriel.
Happy birthday to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Listen, he's adorable.
Thank you.
He's also big, yeah?
He's big, yeah. He was tiny at birth. He was only 6 pounds at birth, but he caught up with no problem.
I was gonna say, he's a big boy.
So usually on FinCom meeting, my father's here, but he's being so fussy. I'm like, Dad, just give him to me.
He's adorable.
He's welcome anytime.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so Article 18. Again, I think we've heard from Tony and retiring Chief Dwyer about the need for this, and we had
Yes.
vetted it and discussed it last year as well. So I think unless there's any discussion, I think we could move to.
Oh, I will move on this one. This one is very important. They need this.
Second,
Katie, aye.
Brown eye.
Fulgham, aye.
Lewis, aye.
Tommy, I.
Vanderslice, aye.
She and-
Zahora, I.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Got everybody.
So I guess when Zach was here, he kind of talked us through the issue with the critical equipment, I guess, that is the subject of this DPW borrowing. Sounds like
Previous truck is rotting through, yes.
Right.
Right.
the
It's
backhoe
dangerous.
was dangerous, so they have a current one that they're using that's on a kind of lease to own setup, as much as I understand it. And then
Lindley's.
the water sewer utility truck is kind of the workhorse truck that needs to be replaced. And it sounds like the old one has served a reasonable and sufficient life, so it makes sense to replace it.
I'll make that recommendation, that motion to
I'll
recommend.
second. Beatty, aye.
Brown eye.
Was I?
Hey, just to clarify, the idea is that we will be using retained earnings to make this purchase.
Even better.
Enderslice, aye.
Full Jemai.
Oh, the next one is
Ian,
bad.
aye.
Army, aye. Did everyone weigh in?
Zahora, I.
All right. So I guess this one might slow us down a little bit. Maybe not.
Yeah, this is kind of like the 800-pound gorilla.
I
I
don't-
gorilla at least.
Oh, I
Maybe.
don't think so. It's not like we haven't talked about this to death.
Right.
And this is the same recommendation we had last time that didn't make it on the warrant.
Right.
And in spite of everybody, some other people, it's the only thing possible.
Right. So, I mean, you can certainly have the conversation, but it's not any different than what we agreed to last time.
Yeah,
And
let
we
me.
learned a lot about it. I
Let me-
mean, they presented so much information. I mean, this is one we've really had a lot of opportunities to learn about and talk about, right? I feel that way.
Although Danny made a couple of really good recommendations that
Oh.
I'm happy to add into our recommendation. I mean, because it's Dana, and I'll in a minute I'll let you speak for yourself. But just give me 1 minute. But because the Coast Guard Housing Committee remit is to what to do with the property, not what to do with the money. Dana suggested that part of my recommendation, the recommendation we put in there, is what we recommend to do with the money.
Right. I remember that. Good point.
Right. So there were a couple things, and Judy stated it well. There's no definition of what to do with the proceeds, and there's been some talk about it with the Coast Guard Committee, and I'd feel more comfortable if it was actually, codified right here with this article. And the two issues are what to do with the money that's going to come into the town. And also, this is very important financially to the town because these housing units are cash flow positive to the general fund of the town to the tune of, I think it's 6 figures or more a year. So once we sell those houses off, we're not going to have that cash flowing into the town. So it kind of needs to take care of the debt so that it doesn't have an adverse effect on the cash flow to the town. So that's kind of why I would like to see it, more defined. And then I don't know how everybody else feels about that. And then there's another issue too, which is I think it's the second item down, the little hash mark, an approximate 30-foot wide tract of land abutting the golf course. That's kind of, I think that 30-foot tract of land will reduce the value of one of the lots that we're going to sell off. And it's not going to have any impact on the golf course to lose that land and have it sold off. So it's also going to increase the value of that lot, but also the taxes that are going to be paid on that lot going forward would go to the town and help the cash flow situation. So those are the two things that I was thinking about, and I wanted to kind of pitch it off to the FinCom here and see what people were thinking.
Oh, I have a third one, and that is, what happens if the lots don't sell?
Well, so there's a couple of things. First, to answer Dana, I would make a recommendation. I wouldn't change that recommendation on the strip of land. Again, because, and certainly we'll have bring Peter back to talk about it. There's a very specific reason of which I absolutely can't remember why that strip of land was not included. And but I wouldn't, as much as that committee has met over the last 3 years, this was part of their recommendation. So there's a very valid reason for it. Unfortunately, I don't know what that is.
I think it had, Judy, I thought it had something to do with it. I mean, it's a slope. And
Yeah.
what it does is it adds square footage to that lot, which might allow the buyer to build a larger home on it, but it's not a buildable portion. So it just made sense to keep that lot in line with the size of the other lots and just turn that over to the golf course. Not that the golf course can use it for anything because it's a slope.
Yeah, it could be
I-
regraded for one thing. And there are going to be restrictions in this article about the sizes of the homes that can be built there. So I don't
There's
know.
going to be recommendations in that article, which
It's
is
not
different
binding.
than anything that we can actually do. But again, because the committee itself came up with these recommendations, I'm not in any way in favor of changing them. It's worthwhile having Peter back to discuss. Again, this is the same recommendation that was from the last warrant that didn't make it. The what was the other thing? Wait a minute. Shoot. So again, about the spending of the money, I mean, there's a couple of things. It looks like it's all cash positive, and we do bring in more than we send out. But remember that the amount of money that we pay the management company and all of the expenses related to the upgrades of those houses, it goes in a different pocket. It's not. It doesn't. The accounting isn't clear. So it looks like, we're bringing in revenue, but there are also expenses. But you're right, it will mean that we'll lose some ongoing revenue, but we do have that loan that's outstanding as well. So I do think that I think this is our place to say that the money needs to be spent to A, pay off the loan, and B, the other things that you mentioned, I'm happy to add that in. But you're right about that too, Barbara. It's very possible that the lots might not sell or might not sell as fast.
Right.
And one of the, again, it's not the purview of this committee to say how the lots go out, but the one of the things that was floated is that when the next committee decides how to actually implement, is that the lots don't all go on the market at one time,
Right.
because that, allows for a developer to come in and buy them all up. So even when we talk about the money, it's not going to come in one big chunk.
And I think it's misleading that it's cash flow positive because we've been paying interest only,
Right.
borrowing. So if you threw in the principal, I'm not sure it would be.
Yeah, I think that the whole cash flow, but because part of it's our accounting system, part of it doesn't, it doesn't balance out in that way. They don't go to the same pockets to balance out.
Right.
A lot of different things, which maybe will be solved with the new accounting software.
Okay.
Ever hopeful. So anyway, so that's what I'm not actually in favor of talking about the strip of land, but let's hold on this and we'll ask Peter to come back and talk about it.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine. The one thing I'll say with respect to the strip of land, so I kind of cut across that corner of the golf course when I take my dogs for a walk. And I did notice distinctly when they did put the survey markers up, when they did do the survey to kind of delineate the boundaries of the Coast Guard housing, that the stake that kind of marks the corner of that lot that protrudes across the first tee and out into what I would call like the fairway between I think the first and second hole. It's kind of, if that was the true border of the Coast Guard housing, of the lot there, it would be dramatically different than the existing kind of aesthetics of how the properties are laid out. So I'm guessing when Peter talks us through it, or if you were to go down there and have him point out things to you, that need to kind of seed that 30-foot track to the golf course, given the way it's laid out now, makes pretty solid sense. One thing I remember having a conversation to him about was if the town needed to kind of give up land to either the golf course or to, you know, to enable access to the bunker, you know, where the sailing committee and the DPW stores things, that if they needed to make up square footage, that there's some other kind of no man's land in between the golf course facilities building and the Coast Guard properties, where you could in theory kind of take back your land there. And when I told Peter that, he was kind of agreeable to that and said that they would look into it. I don't remember how or why they decided with the current kind of boundaries, but I think it's fair to ask Peter about it specifically with the questions that Dana has, but I think he'll have a pretty good answer of why they did it this way.
So John, is that would be a land swap, then give the golf course this 30-foot wide tract, and then that lot that's on the end there would gather more property from the golf course?
Yeah, it may not be even that. It might not be, you know, it might not be that lot that technically gains it. It may be another lot that gained it. I don't, I'd
Yeah.
have to look at the way that they redrew the lots, or if they did. But it
Yeah,
just means
I'd encourage the committee to also, you know, take a walk down that road to
Yeah.
that dead end road, and you can see where those lots are.
Yeah.
The lots at the end are very small lots, and, you know, I think they're not worth much as they are.
So that brings me
Well,
back to my
remember, it's all
question.
one lot. That's the trouble. So the first thing we have to do is regrade, pull everything down, regrade and stake it.
So that brings me back to my question. I mean, there is a possibility that some of these lots won't sell for quite some time, for a long time, correct?
Well, I mean, anything's possible, but frankly, when the houses come down and the lots are resized, they'll be decent size.
Yeah, you know, I know that, but I'm just saying, in the interim, I take it that we don't get the money coming in, right? So
Oh, true.
do we have to think about what happens with the loss of the money? Dana, you mentioned this, the loss of the money coming in versus sort of nothing coming in for whatever period of time. Is that going to be an issue?
That's a good question. How do we offset the fact that some revenue comes in versus none?
That's
a good
my question. Yeah.
I have those same questions, Barbara.
But again, that's not the purview of the Coast Guard meeting, but it is a purview of the finance.
Exactly. It's one of our questions
Right.
we need to think about.
I mean, if we can just work on clearing some of that up with, maybe it's just a meeting with Peter and he can explain to us so we can.
Well, Peter can help you with the land, but how the town's going to take care of the loss of whatever revenue we get, even though our expenses are down, is not anything that Peter can help us with.
Right.
And in the end, no matter what happens, we still have that loan that's coming due in just now a couple of years.
This issue has been hanging out there for what, 10 years or something?
Oh, let's see,
Or
this
more
is
than
3,
that.
so probably at least
Yeah.
12.
You know, I mean, I'm inclined to say, you know, we should give the Coast Guard Committee some latitude in this. I mean, they spent a ton of time on this, and I guess I'm inclined to not try to micromanage it too much. Let's
I
just,
appreciate that, because this is the 3rd iteration of this committee.
yeah,
And yeah, and there's also some talk that there's going to be some opposition to this, so we'll see how it plays out.
well, yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. But if we do nothing, okay, off we go into, part 4, the sequel.
Right. If we do nothing, you see, if we do nothing, that loan's going to come due and there will be no money to pay it.
Right.
And we don't, we can't say we were surprised.
Right. Well, and the other problem is, remember, those houses are temporary housing at 60 years later. They are just not in good shape.
All good points. Yeah, I agree.
So maybe Dana, in that case, it's just a conversation with Peter as opposed to bringing him in to talk through it again. But whatever the committee wants.
Makes sense. I mean, Tony said in the last meeting, Tony Barletta, that if we had some suggestions to it, we could bring them to him and he would bring them to in terms of the language here of the article, bring them to the Board of Selectmen.
The article itself, but I mean, I think that's pretty fixed because that's what the committee is recommending. But I think that the recommendation, I can draft that and see what you think.
Thanks. Sounds good to me.
Okay, great.
The article as written is silent on what happens to the proceeds.
The article wouldn't include that because it's not the purview of the committee.
Right, understood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the points, if I understood maybe what Dana was saying and what Bob is going to say, is that we could add that language. We could recommend to the selectmen that it's explicitly stated that the first thing we do with the money is pay off the loan and make that part of the actual warrant article.
Right.
Like that part of the recommendation. You can't alter the article. Because
no, but the selectmen can open the warrant and change the articles. They still have the power to do that. So in theory, if we asked and had a conversation with them proposing that, they could in theory add that. The question is that something we want to push on, or do we want to just take care of it in our recommendation statement?
And I think, could we amend it on the floor if we wanted to? I think we could.
See, that's the part I don't understand, because I know that the selectmen can open up the article, but the warrant, but it's not their recommendation, right? So it's the committee's recommendation.
Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I missed that nuance.
I'm new at this, but
okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Judy.
if we don't put something in this article or after this article regarding pay down of the loan, you may invite somebody to challenge it. Say, well, look, before I vote for this thing, what are you going to do with the money?
Oh, that's legitimate. Well, how about this? Let me draft draft a response. I'll bring it back next week and see what you guys think.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, and my concern goes beyond just paying down the loan. Because God willing, in the creek don't rise, we're going to be sitting on a bunch of money that you don't want to turn into, you shouldn't regard this as a big windfall and a feeding frenzy. You need to be considered about how you can spend this money.
In addition, Bob, I would say, we don't want it to be included as part of the operational funds of the town.
Right. Yes. Yes.
That's exactly what we're trying to get at here, I think.
Well, I think that, so here's what Dana suggested, which I will add because I thought they were great. The first thing we do is we recommend that they pay off the debt principal for the loan. And the second thing is to pay the town back for the $200,000 to prepare or whatever the cost is, to prepare the cost of the lots for sale. And then pay off the town for the interest on the original loan. And then there's a note here about seed money for the study on elderly housing and affordable housing. And then pay down other municipal debt, highest interest rate first. I'm not certain about the seed money for study on elderly housing and affordable housing. What do you mean? What does that mean more specifically, Dana?
Yeah, Judy, that's something Peter mentioned when he came to us and discussed it. They're talking about, I believe the number was $50,000 for a study or some kind of effort to go forward on those, to address the concerns of the community about, selling this affordable housing and not doing anything going forward. So that's what Peter said.
And I'm in favor of a study like that. I think
I,
it's a concern.
I'm not opposed. I mean, I get that, but I look at Nahant and I don't see any place where that could be. So is it a study in futility?
Yes.
At the beginning of this, Judy, you mentioned that this was a positive cash endeavor. And there's a bunch of unknowns that when this transaction is completed, what is going to happen to our cash? What sneaky little expense is going to come out that we didn't anticipate? So if we just sort of took the proceeds of it and put it into a, I don't know, call it a temporary stabilization fund for the unknown, because I have no idea what's going to come out, when they start digging out those oil tanks and somebody comes in and says, wow, hazardous waste. We didn't anticipate that. But if we could just lock up the money and put it in even if it's for just 2 years or 1 year until the fallout, and then figure out what to do with it. With that, maybe I'm erring too much on the side of caution, but pay down the debt and hold on to the cash until we know what's going to hit us between the teeth.
I'm with you, Calvin.
I don't know how to change it.
I like the caution too, because anybody who's done anything in a home at all knows that there's always something that goes wrong.
Yeah, and that $200,000 to prepare the property is probably low.
Yeah. I like the idea of a stabilization fund. And then later, once we have, let's hope that there's not, I'm not even going to say what, we had a terrible problem like that on campus. It turned out, I won't even go there. Ay, ay, ay.
Not good.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh dear, what they found. But I think it's a good idea. And then this conversation will continue. And we're not ready to make those decisions right now. But we definitely need to have a fund, a stabilization fund, to be responsible and then continue to have conversations.
I do worry though that the townspeople aren't going to understand that we don't have those answers, and we just can't have those answers.
Yeah, we can't.
No. Okay, I'll give it a draft.
Okay. So we obviously can't do anything on Article 21. So then that brings us to Article 22. So
That one's going to be hard.
Yeah, Bob and I have had, Bob, you want to kind of outline the kind of conversation or the kind of discussion we've kind of started?
We're on 22?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been chatting just about the procedure for how we want to come to a decision on this among the committee. And, the thought we floated was, and we're not going to do this tonight, and you'll see why in a second, would be to start and just take a straw poll of the committee. And so we kind of get a sense as to who is where on this article. And then as the discussion of it, to couch the discussion of it, or to do the discussion of it, in a sense, as to how we would write our recommendation. And I think if we do that, we're going to touch on all of the important issues, because as we write our recommendation, we're going to talk about the estimates, the projections. We're going to talk about whatever the selectmen's plan is. We're going to talk about eminent domain. We're going to talk about Well, yes. Oh, the risks, of course. How can we not talk about the risks? So, as we walk through those various things, let's discuss it in the sense of what do we want the book to say? And that'll at least provide some structure to the conversation rather than just having it be absolutely freeform. Does that make sense to the folks?
Yeah.
The way I was thinking about it is it's unlikely that there's going to be a unanimous decision either way with respect to this. So you're probably either going to have, you're going to have a majority and a minority opinion, and the way I would think about it is we're going to need to include the full scope of the sentiments and the objective data that each camp used to rationalize their vote on the recommendation. So, kind of like almost like a Supreme Court minority and majority decision, a dissenting opinion. And, we're gonna have to kind of make sure that we factually address both sides of the equation. So the point of kind of not getting kind of caught in a conversation about trying to convince each other to vote one way or the other, because that's probably not going to be constructive. Instead, do as Bob says, make sure that our recommendation is fully reflective of the information that the townspeople are going to need to make their own decision on it, much as the committee has made its decision on it.
Yeah, well said. You said that way better than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah. I wish we recorded this because I probably can't say it again. But
It's interesting. This is just such an emotional issue to the town. And we as fiduciaries, I need to cut through that and get to the facts as best we can. And I think it's well said that we're not going to agree 100%. And there's going to be a majority minority. There might be, with there's 8 of us here,
right.
it might be split evenly. And so I think it's going to be more constructive for us to focus on the financial part of it as much as we can and, come up with that approach.
So to the other part of, the kind of effort to get us closer to that, I thought it was important, or Bob and I both thought it was important to get the selectmen to give us an update of where they are in terms of their conversation or potential for negotiation with Northeastern. So we have, I think, have agreement from one of the selectmen is going to show up at our next meeting, the 23rd, and give us that opportunity to kind of have them explain to us where they are in their process or in their thinking. Is that accurate, Bob?
Yes. Yeah, it's probably going to be Josh or Mark. I don't know which of the two, but they committed to it.
Right.
That's terrific.
So in the context of where we are today on Tuesday and where we'll be next Tuesday, think of the kind of questions or the pieces of information that you'll want to know from either Josh or Mark to help you along that road to making the vote or the choice that you think is right.
Does all that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would love an update because the last I got was a piece of paper from Northeastern saying they give in to Nahant. And then the town meeting happened and we did a shortened version.
So one thing, Jeff, if you go and look in the OneDrive in the place where we're storing our documents, there's a folder that's, I think, entitled East Point Eminent Domain. And in that folder, there may be other things, but I know 3 of the things that are in there are the 3 sequential letters. The first by the town to Northeastern. The second was Northeastern's reply to the town's letter. And then the third is Nahant's reply to Northeastern's letter. So there's kind of, these are all within the last, I don't know, 6 weeks,
Oh,
you know, so they're kind of a back and forth conversation about mediation or compromise or willingness, trying to get people to the table to talk and negotiate. So that's the conversation.
that'll be my
The other,
first task.
yeah, the other thing that's in there that I don't know if you're looking for some interesting historical reading, I can't remember off the top of my head which annual town meeting it was from, but
I read it.
yeah, so the transcript where the initial decision that the town made not to purchase East Point from the government was made, and it's kind of an interesting read.
It's
So
an interesting.
that
Do we have
document
the
in there.
1968 meetings?
That's what he has there.
That's what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
the one I read was early 60s, I think.
I think I have
Was
the yeah, I don't remember which year. I don't have it in front of me, but it's the meeting where it was ultimately decided not to take the property.
Yeah, I read that one, and then I said, well,
Okay.
that's mistake number 1.
Right.
But then at some point in time, when Lodge Park came about, there
Yeah.
had to be some additional, and
Right.
I haven't found the meetings, you know.
Huh.
What was that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that piece of the history.
Right, that was much later because the Navy hung on to that 8 acres. And so when the Navy gave it up, that's when the town purchased that. I don't remember the exact date.
Okay, so because that initial town meeting, I was looking for some definition where that Northeastern agreed to conserve the land, and I couldn't find it in that real old town meeting. So I figured that must be written in some other meeting at a later date.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I don't know.
missing data.
All right, so we can move on from Article 22. Everybody kind of agrees, at least for now, that makes sense, what we're thinking. Happy to have any additional ideas or insights. All
So
right.
basically, we're gonna get an update. Right? That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we're gonna get an update next Tuesday. And then I haven't fully thought through the logistics. I don't know if you have, Bob. I don't know if, are we proposing that next Tuesday is the day that we would have our kind of quote unquote discussion about where everybody stands? Or would we take a little more time after hearing from the selectmen to kind of, we're in theory going to meet both next Tuesday and next Thursday. I don't know if everybody remembers that, but we were going to meet the 23rd and the 25th. What do you think, Bob?
It feels like it might be good to have some time between to let folks reflect.
Yeah, that would be my thought, but I don't know if that's,
Is Austin still with us?
I don't know.
I'm wondering what I was going to ask. Will the CPC be ready by next Tuesday?
Yeah, he's on the, I see him in the.
Yeah, I'm on here.
Yeah.
I'm not positive about that. We just received the applications this past weekend, so our meeting yesterday was our first time reviewing them. So I'm not positive. You'd have to follow up with Lynn on that. A few of those requests had to go back to the petitioners to work out some details. I think 3 of them.
Okay. But it kind of, I'm reading between the lines, it probably premature.
Right. Yeah, I think you're probably right. We also have the assessor showing up in theory next Tuesday, so we have some things to take care of. All right. I'm trying to reconcile. So Article 23, are we ready to move on?
Again, would you add another T to my name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. There's one Scots Irish. It has both spellings. Lowland Scots, Highland Scots, Northern, whatever.
All right, so I'm looking at this one, trying to find it in last year's language. So that's to me sounds like it's just our standard borrowing, right?
I think that's a routine article.
Right. Yeah, we didn't have it last year because all of our borrowing was rolled together into that one big slug. So I don't know. I don't know if we're in a place to, I can't fully explain what that, I think it's straightforward and I think it's a standard borrowing, but I don't know much more than that.
MWA borrowing. This is the 0% one.
I don't know.
This
Is
is this,
Yeah,
yeah, this is a standard article and it's the 0%
Exactly.
interest loan. Mhm.
exactly.
all right, so maybe it is straightforward. I'm looking for in an older book.
Yeah, I've got an older book and interesting. It was recommended, but there's language in here that says the advisory and finance committee would not normally recommend it, but blah, 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 blah. They had identified a specific use for it. We're hesitant to continue to recommend the article on an annual basis. Yeah, because, yeah, this thing, it rolls every 10 years. So it's just, you borrow and then you pay back $13,400 every year for 10 years and then rinse and repeat.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at the old statement. So the last paragraph says, normally we would not recommend borrowing for the water and sewer enterprise because repair and maintenance of the fund should be generated through the water rates. The town needs to run the water and sewer as a business, which has its own maintenance and service capital fund for work and repair. So that was 2019. So yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. I mean, I think our message can be the same, but I also think if we suddenly just said, no, we're not going to borrow this, that would kind of throw a wrench into things. So
It would. You'd have to play catch up.
yeah. So given that, I'm I don't know if you guys are willing to make a motion to recommend, and then we'll again firm up our language to be not so conciliatory in the future, maybe.
What does that mean in terms of, because my name's on this one, what would that mean in terms of?
That would mean that I think, Barbara, what we would do is I would go back and find the recommendation statement from the 2019 meeting and give that to you. And then we kind of have a conversation with Tony to basically remind him of the message that we sent then. that we would maybe send again. So it would just kind of be a language that maybe makes this type of borrowing not so just automatic in the
Well,
future.
was this something that
Awesome.
again, the software was again the key to everything, right? But is this something that the software is supposed to facilitate so that there's a specific, that the revenues come in and the expenses come in out of that same account? Does that make sense, Allison? Maybe I've gotten that confused, but there was,
Well, it wouldn't be any different than we're accounting for it right now. It would be in a capital projects fund.
Which bucket on debt does that go into, that 200,000?
So I think from what I'm hearing from that 2019 recommendation, I'm thinking it has something to do with the debt shift. And that's what the FinCom at that time was trying to get at. I think that it had something to do with if they approved this, to keep that borrowing within the water and sewer enterprise.
Remember how we broke down the debt into buckets? There
Yes.
was, which one did that one?
It's long-term debt.
Long-term.
Yep, so there's principal and interest payments for a 10-year period. And the language for this, it just authorizes the town to borrow. So the town doesn't necessarily have to borrow it every year. So once you have that authorization, if you don't borrow, say we don't borrow next year, it could roll into the following year, and then we could borrow $400,000.
I remember Tony talking about that last time, now that you say that.
Yeah, I do too. And I
Yeah.
remember saying that, making that clear at town meeting.
So in a way, the authorization to borrow is almost in a way, it's a rolling stabilization loan in essence, where
Yeah, because what happens is if you're borrowing at 0 interest for 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years, you're paying annually as much as you're borrowing.
right.
Correct.
Which is,
You're basically just spreading out the payments over 10 years.
yeah, and I assume we're beyond the 10-year limit, so we're just.
Yeah, so some we've already ended, and then we've started new,
Yeah.
because since we've had this authorization every year, in some years we haven't borrowed, in some years we've combined 2 years to borrow. So we have a few that we just went out and, end in 9 years from now.
All right. Well, what's it going to do to us if we don't borrow?
If you don't recommend this,
Yeah,
we wouldn't have the ability to borrow.
no, I mean, in practical terms. Right? Is something not going to get fixed or not going to get done, or?
It's like stripping working capital out.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, that would be more of a Tony and Zach question. I'm not sure, of the projects that are on the plate, and it could also be for emergency type work. So
I see what you're saying, Bob, is if you got 200 coming in and 200 going out, as far as cash flow, it's nothing.
Right. See, I was reading your book. What do we want to do about this? Should we?
I would kind of
vote to
think,
recommend.
yeah, I was gonna say, what if, I don't think we're gonna solve, I don't think not recommending this is gonna, lead us down
Would be
some
rich.
road to kind of vastly reform the water and sewer enterprise fund or the way we treat our debt. But I think, more in a way coherently, the stuff that Jeff's been doing to kind of lay out the big picture and the trends, as long as we understand that and we understand Article 23 in the context of that, that's almost more important.
Yep.
Right. So I'm okay, hearing a motion to recommend it.
So move.
You're saying we are
Second.
where we are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Katie, I.
Brown eye.
Yeah. Lewis
Well-
reluctantly, aye.
Fulgham, aye.
Sheehan,
Vanderslice,
aye.
yeah, Vanderslice reluctantly, aye.
Zohara, I.
Carmy, I.
But Jeff, I think you're, the graphs and the figures and the way you're kind of have captured the information in the long term, like we definitely have to figure out how to, maybe continue to package that, and then, that can be included as a significant appendix in the book. And we can also touch on it in some of the recommendation statements, because I
Yeah.
think it's really important, and you've done a good job of kind of helping to open our eyes and understand it better. So,
Yep.
that's the
No,
first part.
I understand. I agree.
Yeah, so we understand it better, and now we can start doing something about it, especially with all this new software we're gonna have that's gonna make everything magical.
It's not a magic bullet.
No, it's very expensive pixie dust.
Yeah,
Uh,
all right. Article 24, so we're at 9 o'clock. Do we want to keep going, or do we,
No, I call all.
okay. We made it more than halfway, and I think we did a solid, very solid effort.
I think we did well.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, so then are you okay with that, Bob?
Yep, I was gonna do the same thing. I was gonna say, let's go to 9:30, but I'm fine stopping here.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
me too.
okay. So what's on the agenda? Anything else on the agenda other than public comment?
That's it.
All right, so anybody in the public want to comment?
No, thank you.
Okay. It looks like Michelle and Kathy Martin, our longtime fan, is here, but I guess we're good. So again, next week we'll hear from the selectmen on Tuesday. We'll hear from the assessor on Tuesday. Unlikely to have anything from the CPC until maybe the Thursday of next week. Bless you.
Thank you.
And then
If we have excess time on Tuesday, we could
keep
continue.
plowing through.
Yeah, continue.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Motion to adjourn then, I guess.
So
would be-
moved.
Second,
Fulgham, aye.
Katie, I.
Brown eye.
Lewis, aye.
Vanderslice, aye.
Sheehan, aye.
Carmy, I.
Zohara, I.
Thank you again, Allison, for sharing your son's birthday.
Thank
with us.
you.
And,
I'm still
thanks
laughing
for
that you guys sang to him. That was very
Happy
sweet.
birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And he finally fell asleep, so.
Well, of course.
Gabriel.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right.
Night.
Going to
Good
be
night.
a
Good night.
bonus.
All right. Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Later.